As of today, there is not yet any true answer for that. Does anything rival the pyramids? Do any morals of religion, any morals at all, rival the great King Khafre and his father, who had those wonderful, awesome pyramids built for them for their death? Never mind how they lived. The amount of treasure in that pyramid is astonishing. And they're right. They are right. All the words, down to the last one of Isaiah 58, speak only to a nation, a people, a society. Every individual who lives that way comes to ruin. The way to live is if somebody upsets you or is simply in your way, or you want to eat their intestine, go for it. Fuck anything you want to fuck. Do anything you want to do. Adam was meant to rule, but Adam felt lonely in this metaphor. Adam felt lonely. He wanted someone to talk to, and things got messy. Society was created. You had kids. Lots and lots and lots of people. So today, the way people live is to try to find that balance, to be as much like Khafre as they can, without going to jail. And also, while still looking good enough, lying, being hypocritical enough in public, that people will think that they actually believe in and follow some moral or other, so the other person will be shamed into following it too, so they won't become enslaved. As of today, there's no answer for Khafre. The answer is Isaiah 58. That's the answer. If only if everybody does it. It speaks to a whole nation. It speaks in the singular. An individual doing it comes to ruin. It is bad business practice, bad life practice. There's no answer yet for Khafre. The Torah says that God told the Jews you'll never see Egypt again. The rabbis understood that to mean that there's a command against going to Egypt. The Torah itself is rather mysterious. I can't get too into it. Maimonides, his conclusion on that is that the people of Egypt at the time were uniquely messed up, and that therefore being in Egypt was a terrible thing for somebody to go and live there among the Egyptians. He himself did live in Egypt and died in Egypt. Things change. But the evidence has not changed. The evidence. To this day, it's unclear how they possibly could have built all that 5,000 years ago. These huge monumental stones that I have climbed on, that I've shared videos of. Almost the entire thing is stone. It's not hollow on the inside. Carried by legions and legions and legions of people for the sake of a theoretical afterlife that the king himself probably did not believe in either. All the goods buried there, the wealth. Do you know that only a small multiple of the amount of gold that was in the tombs has been found since then? That's it. Gold, silver, wealth beyond imagination. And when you see this, you realize that selfishness is the answer in the world that we have today. What did Rambam have to say? Maimonides, what did he have to say about the general subject? Let me read to you chapter 6 of the section on character traits in the Book of Knowledge. And if you want to know chapter 58 of Isaiah, I've mentioned bits and pieces throughout various videos. I made one entire video completely in Hebrew, and I did one video that's called The Biblical Utopia, going through it over the course of an hour, and it is the message that I have to say. To what end? I don't know. The world can't hear. I don't mind if the world hears and rejects. I would love, if I'm wrong, for the world to hear it and correct me, and correct Isaiah for that matter, or my interpretation of Isaiah, whatever it happens to be. I'm definitely open to being corrected. I beg for correction, to no avail, because no one can hear me in the first place. You who can hear me, if what I'm saying at least sounds intriguing, share it with people. There isn't much time. I'm not claiming any kind of magical things. Just trust me, I understand how the world works pretty well, and I have a very good, successful track record, proven track record of predicting how things would go in the world, in the large scheme of things, and I've been correct. If I need to trot it out, I'll trot it out. Let's read Maimonides. Derech briyosei shel adam liyos nimshach b'deyosav uv'masav achareyav v'chaverov. It is the nature of a human to end up being drawn to act and think and feel similarly to his neighbors and his friends. V'noyheik keminhag anshe medinosai, and to act like the men of his country. Lefichach, therefore, tzarech adam l'hischaber l'tzadikim. A person needs to connect himself or herself. Gender just follows the male, as in most languages. A person needs to connect himself to the righteous. V'leishev etzel hachachamim tamid, and to sit and dwell among the wise all the time. Kidei sheyilmad b'maseihem, so that he learns from their actions. V'yisrachik, and he should distance himself min harashoyim, from the evil ones. Haholchim b'choshech, that go in darkness. Kidei shelo yilmad b'maseihem, so he does not learn from their actions. Hu sheshloima omer, this is what Solomon said. Holech es chachomim yechkom, one who goes with the wise will become wise himself. Ve'roech silim yeroeh, and one who is a neighbor or even a shepherd of the fools will himself become a fool. Va'omer, and it also says in the very beginning of Psalms, Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halach. You can read the very first verse of Psalms yourself. Fortunate is the one that doesn't go with various kinds of fools, to go with them, to stand in their way, to sit with them, etc. V'chein, and so, therefore, im haya b'medina, sheminageseya royim, if a person happens to be in a city, in a country, in a society that has bad traits, ve'ein anosheha holchim b'derech yishara, whose people do not go in the straight path, Yelech, he must go l'magom she'anosheha tzadikim, to a place that has righteous people living there. V'noagim b'derech tovim, and people who act in a good way. Ve'im hayu kol hamedinois shehu yoidam v'shomea shmu asam, and if all the countries that he knows of or has even heard about, noyagim b'derech loy tova, go in a bad way, k'moiz manenu, like in our time, or he cannot go to a country that has good values, because of the dangers of travel, or because he is ill, then yeshev levado yechidi, let him dwell alone, ke'inyan shenemar, as the matter which was spoken of in Eicha, in Lamentations, yeshev badod v'yidom, dwelling alone and silent. Ve'im hayu royim, and if the people are so bad, v'chatoyim, and such sinners, that they don't allow him to simply dwell in their society, unless he mixes with them, and he acts like them, hara, their evil ways, then let him go out to the caves, and to the thistles, and to the deserts. You might think that doesn't apply today. Nobody is forcing you to hold other people up at gunpoint, but if you are involved in the capitalistic system, as we all must be, not that I'm doing something, anyone who's the stupid people who can only see binary, capitalism, communism, they're not watching this, I don't have to worry about them. Our current system is so bad, that you really, really, really have to dwell yechidi if you are disgusted by their ways. I'm not following Maimonides when I dwell alone. I just can't lie. I can't think false thoughts and say false things and act contrary to my own inner being, whatever you might call that. Whatever I believe, whatever seems to me to be correct. I'm not blaming those who do. Sometimes it's better to make a small compromise than a big one. I had a radio show in Palm Springs that was very successful. And then I did not get to keep the radio show because I refused to accept advertising from the casinos. Therefore, I had no way to make a living, etc., etc., etc. A few years later, I had to play poker to survive, which is really, 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 really bad thing to do. Maybe one should make all kinds of small compromises. I'm not a practical person. I can't tell you that. Maimonides continues, but no matter what, va'al yanhig atzmai b'derech hatoyim, let a person not act in the ways of the evil. Ke'inyan shenemar, as the matter which says in Jeremiah, mi yitnenu v'midbar malon orchim. Oh, would one give us in the desert a place for guests? That's why Abraham is the father of Israel, Yisrael, not the country, the people. Abraham, who lived out in the desert, who welcomed guests at the heat of the day, who ran towards them. Abraham, who defended even the wicked against God. That's somebody worthy of being the forefather of those that are carrying this message. To whatever degree they keep it or don't keep it, they carry it. Mitzvah saseh, it is a positive command, to cleave to the wise, and to their students, in order to learn from their ways. As the matter which says, uvoi sidbuk, and you should cleave to God, stick to God. Is it possible for a person to stick to the divine presence? That doesn't make any sense. The divine presence is not a physical thing. The divine presence, by the way, the Shechina, or Ruach HaKodesh, is what later is translated in what they call the New Testament, to the Holy Ghost, or the Holy Spirit. Those Christians that I know, especially those Christians I know through this channel, have an intuition about Christianity, about Judaism, about the Bible, that is on point. and it's somewhat tragic, and I try to rectify it through these videos, that they're cut off from the means of looking back at the original texts. They're cut off from understanding the text that they regard as sacred because of the many translations that happened over the years, because of the errors that were passed along over generations. That's just one small example. This is what the wise men said with regards to this commandment. You should stick to the wise and to their students. Therefore, a person should try very hard to marry the daughter of a righteous, wise person. And to marry his daughter off to a wise person. And to eat and drink with them. And to handle their business affairs. And to get close to them any way they can. As it says, and to stick to God. And so too, the wise men have taught us, and they said in chapters from our fathers, get yourself dusty from the dirt on their feet, and drink thirstily their every word. Now he goes on to discuss Israel. And just last night I was speaking to someone who I talked about a couple of times already. I talked about in a very recent video, and I talked about in the video I mentioned earlier, the biblical utopia. And without me mentioning it, without me prompting or bringing up the subject, he mentioned that his understanding of Yisrael, I won't say Israel because people might think I mean the country, Yisrael, is to be a light unto the nations, is to have this ideal and to perfect it. And eventually everybody can join. Everybody should join, who chooses to, who wants to, who understands it, who feels it. I wrote a piece in Substack on conversion, quoting Maimonides, Rambam's letter to a convert, stressing that this person is no less a descendant of Abraham, but in fact is closer to Abraham than he himself, Maimonides, is, because he is the same as Abraham by bringing himself under the wings of the divine presence. Now we're going to speak about Yisrael, because after all, if we're going to have a law book, there has to be some definition. Who gets to decide who Israel is? So the rule is, and I've written about this in another Substack piece called something like Do the Jews Control Hollywood? A clickbaity title, purposefully so. That once somebody is within Israel, even if they were accepted for wrong reasons, as most converts today should not be accepted into the peoplehood of Israel. And there are a great many people who should be eagerly sought out to be brought into the peoplehood of Israel. But once somebody is in, or once their parents are in, and therefore they're born into it, that's it. They're in. You can't kick them out. So because there has to be that line, there you have Yisrael. I'm tempted to go off a little bit to discuss the Good Samaritan and Jesus' point over there, but I don't know if most people watching right now, where they're coming from. If they're Christian, I would do that and explain. There's so much from the New Testament. Again, I can't really call it the New Testament, I don't regard, but from the Christian Bible, which is a very, very Jewish document that I think is, I hold rather highly in general of that book. But there's so much that is unfortunately misunderstood by people who brought that book to me, who held on to it for thousands of years, and who I appreciate for doing so, and I want to correct if or at least show what I think, and if I'm wrong, to be corrected. But again, that's not the place for this right now. But if that's something people are interested in, let me know. Mitzvah al kol adam. There is a commandment on all people, le'ahov, to love, as kol echad ve'echad mi Yisrael. Every single person from Yisrael, kegufo, like he loves his own body. Shene'emar, as it is stated in Leviticus, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, you should love your re'ah. Remember, that's the word for friend that is different from chaver. Chaver means someone you know, you're connected to. Chibur. Re'ah is someone who is in your society. That was Jesus' point about the Samaritan, for the record. He was helping people understand what it means, people within your society. If you can imagine the Samaritan helping you out, well, yeah, he's in your society, he counts. He was trying to rectify something which was correct in its day when it was said that who is your re'ah? The rabbi said, who is one in your society? Re'echa b'mitzvos, someone who likewise is following the commandments. And of course, as is wont to happen throughout all of human history, as words are transmitted through books instead of person to person, people start worshiping the words and misunderstanding the times and the meaning of what they meant at that time. And therefore, he corrected them on that matter. Love your neighbor. That's why it's usually defined as neighbor, but it doesn't mean literal neighbor. It means someone in your society. Your friend, we'll call it here now, because I don't know any English word for re'ah. Love your neighbor as yourself. And therefore, you are religiously, biblically required and commanded to speak the praises of your fellow Israelite. V'lachos al Maimonides, and to worry about his finances. Just like ka'asher, hu chas al Maimon atzmai, one worries about his own money, v'roitza b'chloid atzmai, and wants honor for himself. V'hamiskabi b'kloin chaveroi, and someone who gets honor, who seeks honor, who makes himself honored through the shame of somebody else, ein loy chelek lo'olam haba, he has no place in the coming world. Ahavas hager, love of the sojourner, and this as well relates to Jesus' point about the Samaritan, although the definition of ger has changed over the course of the generations. Today, without there being a people of Yisrael in a land following, without having the ancient kingdom stuff, whatever our current situation happens to be, which is, it would be impossible for me to discuss it right now without getting into the minutiae of details for very obvious reasons. But nowadays it means converts, people who join. It's so sad, so sad, so sad. Literally most of the people joining, should not be accepted in. And literally most of the people who would enhance the name of Yisrael, who would create for us, who would bring for us Yisrael as it ought to be, not only aren't being sought out, but they're treated just like anyone else when they come. Actually, they're treated worse, because usually those people actually have a lot less money than the people who join for the wrong reasons. I mean that not just because it's a practical thing, you have to go through all this lengthy process, etc., and therefore, if you don't have much money, you don't have that much buffer room and space and all the rest, but very literally, in Colombia, I was not allowed into the synagogue on the high holy days in Colombia when I went there. I know technically I could have sent my passport in advance, blah, blah, blah. But you would think that if I show up, no matter their security concerns, I show up, metal detector, pat me down, I can speak any Jewish language they like, I'm a rabbi, you would think it wouldn't be a concern. Nope, not how it works. I met a Jew in Colombia who runs a little chess club. He hates his fellow Jews in Colombia, because he's poor and they're rich. And in America today, in a great many synagogues, not necessarily the Orthodox, I'll say, but many of the non-Orthodox, it's the wealthy who join. Donald Trump's daughter decided she's Jewish. Hillary Clinton's daughter decided she's Jewish. This is a time, at least till now, things are changing right now, because I haven't been heeded. Not that I'm special. If somebody else was saying the same things that I'm saying, then great, because they're not heeded. Maybe there is somebody, maybe there's 100 people out there just as frustrated as I. But because our message is not being heeded, things are taking a turn. People ain't going to be joining the Jewish people. All these converts who joined in the last few decades, they're out of there right quick. You'll see it happen. So this fellow in Colombia, it's a rich man's club. You gotta pay for seats in the temple there. And I was there when people came out of the temple. I would have to guess that less than 50% of them are descended from 4 Jewish grandparents. That's fine, nothing wrong with converting. But one does have to wonder about somebody who becomes so wealthy in Colombia that he can afford his own private security entourage. All around the synagogue, there were men with guns for 2 blocks all around. Each person had his own security. One has to wonder if these exactly are the best people to carry the name Yisrael. Ahavas hager, Maimonides says, love of the convert. Sheba, who comes, v'nichnas, and enters, tachas kanfei hashchina, under the wings of the Holy Ghost. Shtei mitzvos aseh. Again, Shechina, usually divine presence, but there are other terms people know in other languages. I don't mean to confuse things theologically. You should count, when you think of Christian theology, presume that I think it's all wrong. I don't think it's all wrong. When you're thinking theological rather than value stuff, theological stuff, you should start from that perspective. And don't take my words to think that it means what people say that they think it means in the Christian community. There's 2 positive commandments to love the convert. Achas, 1, mipnei shehu b'chlal reim, because he is within the category of reim, of colleagues, of comrades, of fellow members of your society. V'achas, and 1, mipnei shehu ger, because he is someone who has come to dwell, he is a convert. V'ha-Torah umra, and the Torah, the Bible, the 5 books of Moses says in Deuteronomy, v'ahavtem es hager, thou shalt love the convert. Tzivo al ahavas hager, we are commanded to love the convert, k'moshe tzivo al ahavas atzmo. As we are commanded, God commanded us to love the convert, as He commanded us to love Him Himself. Shene'emar, as it says in Deuteronomy, v'ahavta es Yahovah Elohecha. You should love Yahovah your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your everything. And Hakadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed is He, Atzmo Himself. Ohev Gerim loves converts. Shene'emar, as it says also in Deuteronomy, v'ohev ger, the lover of the convert. That's one of God's names, one of His descriptions, one of His titles is Ohev Ger, the lover of the convert. Kol hasone echad mi Yisrael. And this is where things get complicated, because we are expected to live to the highest of values when it comes to fellow peoples in Yisrael. Even if at times not necessarily all of them are living to those values, and things can get a little hairy for you. Nonetheless, Kol hasone echad mi Yisrael, anyone who hates any individual from Yisrael, belibo in his heart, over below sa'aseh, he is violating a commandment of God about something not to do. Shene'emar, as it says in Leviticus, lo sisno es achicha b'levecha, do not hate your brother in your heart. Ve'ein loken alav zeh. But we don't give lashes for this. You have to understand, this is from Maimonides' 1,000 chapter book covering all of Jewish law, the entire oral law. And therefore, he goes through even rules that don't apply these days, like sacrifices or giving corporeal punishment, as many of the commandments had, corporeal punishment, including lashes. He says, this does not get lashes. Ve'ein loken alav zeh. Even though it is a commandment not to trespass it, if one does, you don't whip them, lefisha ein bo ma'aseh, because there is no action. You can only receive the action of corporeal punishment for engaging in an action. And this is hatred within your heart. The lo hizhira Torah, and the Torah does not warn us, ella al sinah shebalev, only upon hatred that's in your heart. This is something truly brilliant. Avol hamake es chavero, but someone who hits his friend, and over here it's interesting, he uses the word chavero instead of reim or echav. I can't get to that, it would take too long. It's just, Maimonides is pretty, as every Orthodox Jew knows, Maimonides is a lot to learn from the precise language that he used. Unfortunately, they take it to a retarded extent that he would despise, and did despise, and said he despised many times, but they have the right understanding to respect Maimonides and his wording. Aval hamake es chavero, one who hits his friend, v'hamacharfo, and one who shouts at him, afal pi she'eino rasha, even though it is not permitted, eino over mishum lo sisna. He is not violating this commandment of don't hate your brother in your heart, because it's that hatred that's most dangerous. It's that hatred that ruins everything, that creates hypocrisy. If we practice radical candor, as I spoke about with the 9th commandment, is it 9? I believe it's 9. Living versus lying, the video. Radical candor, openness, we work it out. I see your eyes, not now where I can't. That's why this is not what I want to do. I want a live audience like I had back when people thought that I could be puppeted. They gave me many live audiences. I spoke before thousands and thousands of people around the globe until they realized I couldn't be puppeted. Now I'm just talking to you, without you even being here in front of me, so I can see who it is I'm talking to and respond to whatever's unclear and learn from you. That's how the world actually operates these days. It's very sad. So it's the lying, the hypocrisy, the pretending to like someone but not liking them, the hatred in your heart that is worse. With regards to this commandment, there are other things that are problematic with hitting someone or shouting at them otherwise. With regarding to not hating your brother, it's only a hatred in your heart. If you hate someone, you tell them you hate them, and you try to talk to them about it. Maimonides tells you right now in a moment how to talk to people about it if it happens that you hate somebody. But even if you don't, and you do it wrong, that's still better than hating your brother in your heart. That's what God commands us not to do. So, kishayechta ish leish, when a man sins against another man, again, person, when a man sins against another man, lo yistamenu v'yishnok, don't hate him and despise him and be silent about it. Kamosha ne'emar b'rishoyim, like it says about the evil. V'lo dibar Avshalom es Amnon me'uma, and Avshalom didn't speak a word to Amnon. This is the book of Samuel with regarding to David's complicated family with his children. Absalom didn't speak with Amnon a word, l'me'rava ad tov, neither evil nor good. Ki sonei Avshalom es Amnon, because Absalom hated Amnon. That's what evil people do. Can you believe that? You know the expression, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all? Maimonides is very clear that does apply if the person is not present, etc. But in a one-on-one conversation, if you have nothing nice to say the not nice thing. If it's a personal, don't call them ugly. But if you hate someone for a personal reason, if you feel wronged by them, bring it up. Look them in the eyes. Have them look in your eyes. Empathy is built into our system. It's built into who we are as human beings. We don't really want to hurt other people. That's why the whole internet thing is so problematic. If you can't see the other person, you see the amount of people are happy to murder each other through the internet. They really wish each other dead when they say they want each other dead. They really do. Ella mitzvah Allah. It is a commandment upon someone who feels wronged by someone else. L'hidiyah, to tell him, to let him know. V'loy to say to him, Lama azisa li kach v'kach. Why did you do this and that to me? V'lama chatasali b'davar ploini. Why, with regards to this precise matter, did you sin against me? Shenemar, as it says, Hoicheach toichiach es amisecha. Prove and reprove it to people in your nation. Not shout at them. There's a time for that. I've been doing some shouting lately, and we're going to get there in just a moment. After you've gone through all the other steps, it's time to shout. We'll get to that. But if it's simply a personal matter, you feel slighted or whatever, you have to really discuss it with them. You have to attempt to understand their point of view, to ask them, as Maimonides says. Ask them, why'd you do it? Don't say, I hate you for doing it. That's still better than hating them in your heart. But ask them, be open to it. Assume the best. Be dan lekaf schus. Judge the person by the cup of innocence. Schus chov. The two measures of a scale. Dan, judge, lekaf, to the cup of schus, of innocence. When in doubt, presume innocence. And you know what? The belief is that if it's someone from Yisrael, you're probably right. And again, Yisrael is it's a line drawn in the sand because we have to draw it somewhere. I trust it to us to know where it applies, and those few exceptions where someone is already grandfathered in, where it might not apply, very few exceptions, but even so, you have to follow through on all these other steps first and assume the best. But there's numerous people not in Israel. I would venture to say almost all human beings for whom this applies today. So the verse in Leviticus says, prove and reprove. That's what reprove means. Reprove doesn't mean chastise. It means tell it to them and tell them again. Try to understand. If you don't get it the first time, ask again. Be misoirer, or awaken that empathy, that mutual sympathy, that care for each other. The im chazar, and if the person returns from his bad actions against you, uvikesh mimeno, and he requests from the person that he had wronged, limcholo, to forgive him, tzorach limchol. He is required to forgive him. V'lo yehei amochel achzori, and the person doing the forgiving shouldn't be hard-hearted about it. Shenemar, as it says, vayispalel Avraham el Elohim, and Abraham prayed to God on behalf of somebody who had attempted to sleep with Abraham's wife. You also find with Job praying for his friends. Now, haroeh havero, someone sees one of his friends, shechata, that sinned, o shaholach b'derech lo tova, or going in a bad path. I read from Maimonides synagogue. You can see it here 2 times, one in a regular video, one in a short. The Torah scroll, I opened up the Torah scroll right there. The fellow there was unable to open the ark. I knew I'd be able to open it immediately, and I did. It was just, I felt that connection. I'm not saying anything magical. I love it more than he does. He was doing a technical job. I felt connected to the thing. Just, that's how, nothing magical again. But it opened exactly center about the chai bohem, live by them, and don't act in the bad ways like the various bad peoples that acted immorally. Smack dab in the center, which we discussed in number 7 of the 10 Commandments. And the next page is all about this, is these words, all of these words, reprove and prove again. And it says, Lo sakal el cheresh, that's where I began the reading. Lo sakal el cheresh, don't curse the deaf. V'lifnei iver, and before the blind, lo sitein mechshol, don't place a stumbling block. Don't stand on your brother's blood. All of this, you're responsible for everyone. We are all responsible for everyone. Don't wait for the other guy to do it. Let's try to get something happening where enough of us get together and we start building a community where we actually live this way, so the whole world joins us. Right quick, because like I said, we really don't have that much time. So haroah chavero shechata, someone who sees his friend who has sinned, or going in a bad way. Mitzvah it is a mitzvah, it is a commandment to return him to the right path, and to inform him that he is sinning against himself. Sinning against himself, that's the Jewish understanding. The Jewish understanding isn't that you can actually literally hurt God, offend God. We must at times use those metaphors in order to be able to relate to these things, especially with children we do. Some people unfortunately never grow out of the childhood stage of understanding Torah. But at the end of the day, someone is sinning against himself or herself. Just like you're required to help someone who's blind if they're about to accidentally walk into the tracks. You're required to help someone who's in error in any way. As you know, I appeal over and over again. I put up a little thing yesterday, questions and answers, and I left it open for everybody. And I wrote to everyone who had ever criticized me, or implied it, or was silent in the face of my beseeching that they help me out. All of them. Privately I wrote to them, asking them to please correct me if I'm wrong. That's why when I chastise, I feel very confident in what I'm doing. I've followed these rules. If it sounds like it's a personal petty thing, it's not. It is not. Do not misjudge me. If you think it's petty, prove it to me. Prove it and reprove it if I don't hear it. Please. I want to know. You think I want to make a fool of myself and to act petty in public? It's bad enough to appear petty when I'm not. God forbid I should actually be petty. It's not what's happening. So Shenemar, you have to correct him. Shenemar, as it says, and kindly ignore the loud music in the background. I'll try to speak a little closer to the camera. Prove and reprove it to your nation. Someone who proves something, who points out an error to his friend, whether it's a personal matter between the two of you, whether it's a matter between him and the place. The place is another way to talk about God. It means the all. The all. He needs to do this reproving in private, between him and himself, between him and that person, which makes it very complicated. And all this excoriating I've been doing online, I've yet to name anybody. Until today, I did name someone because I commented on his thing. Someone who's not... There is someone who I truly believe is a Russia. A Russia. I know that Jesus said don't worry. He called people Russia too. He overturned money tables, whatever. I'm pretty sure I have a better understanding of Jesus than nearly all Christians do. I'm being dead serious about this individual. A Russia. He knows better. He knows better. More than anyone else, he knows better. And if you saw the lengthy correspondence I had with him, you would know that my not naming him, but calling him and those like him out publicly is falling far short of what I'm supposed to be doing. Far short. He's an evil person. And people think he's wonderful. He's a pretty-faced politician. Last week, he raised about $10 million, to buy beautiful coffins for the dying Israeli soldiers and shit. People think he's a true leader of the Jewish people. They really do. So, you need to do it privately, and I've been done all my reprovings privately. You have no idea the quote-unquote receipts that I have. I don't use that term because I don't intend to utilize them unless necessary, of course. I've never used it that I know of. Never that I know of have I utilized someone's private stuff, no matter what. Even under the most extreme circumstances. I'm sure there are exceptions. I hope there are exceptions, because that speaks to a purity of that's incorrect. That's definitively wrong, and I definitively hope that it's not that is not the case. But way more than I'm supposed to. I'm sure of that. V'yedaber lo b'nachas, and you should speak to him calmly, uveloshon raka, and in a soft language. You gotta see how much soft language there is. You have no idea the amount that I put myself down before the other person and say, maybe I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong, but hear me out. Maybe we can talk for a few minutes. You really have to see it. I hope he comes for me so you can. You really should see it. You speak softly and with a soft language, v'yodio, she'eno omerlo el letovaso, and you let him know you're only doing it for his good, as I have. U'lahavio l'chai olam haba, and to bring him into the next world. Hopefully that means at the very least, because I hope there's a life after this mortal one too, but I don't know. Hopefully at the very least it means the next world that begins when this one ends with the Jubilee on October 12th. The final Jubilee. If the prophets are right. Im kiba mimenu, if he accepted it from you, mutav, it's good. Ve'im lav, and if not, yochichenu, you have to prove it to him, pam shniyav ushlishis, a second time and a third time. If someone's done wrong against the makom, the place, meaning God, or against you, or against someone else, which is part of the makom, if there's something done against someone else, or if it's done against you as not your physical body, not your person, but something that you're involved with, something you represent, that's against the makom, that's against the place, that's against others, that's against God. Whether it's either personal or not, you have to bring it back to them second time and a third time. And so constantly you have to prove and reprove it. Don't give up on them. Don't give up on a potential friend. The person doesn't have to be your bestie, but before hating someone in your heart, don't give up. Until the sinner hits you. The Yomar and says to him, Eini shomeya, I will not listen. And the person that I spoke about today, not the major sinner I'm talking about, I hardly know this person, and he has a public page and I write much more softly than other people do to him. He literally told me, stop writing me. The chol she'efshar biyado limchos, and anyone who has the ability to erase, to protest, to erase the wrong, the eno mocha, and does not, who nispas ba'avon elu, he is caught up in those very sins of these people. She'efshalo limchos behem, because he was able to erase that person's sin by speaking to the person and reasoning with them. When a person goes to reprove his friend, originally, at first, don't speak harshly until you've embarrassed that person. It's very important that you not embarrass the person, that you assume righteousness, that you assume it's a misunderstanding, that you assume maybe the fault was your own or whatever, that you speak, you lower yourself to that level, and you really have to see how I've done this. Forgive me for sure. No, don't forgive me. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing right now, the way I'm talking about myself. I really am. At first, do not speak to them harshly until you embarrass them. Shonemar, as it says, "V'lo sisa alav chait," and don't carry a sin because of him, because Kach amru chachamim, thus said our wise sages. Yachal, you might think, atamochicho, you protest against someone's wrong actions, ufan of mishtanos, and his face changes color from shame. Talmud lomar, and therefore we are studying the verse to read to us, to say to us, "V'lo sisa alav chait," don't carry a sin because of him, because if you made his face change, then you get the sin for doing so. Mikan, from here we know, it is forbidden for a person to embarrass someone from Yisrael, the kol shekein barabim, and certainly in public. Even though somebody who embarrasses his friend is not whipped for it, right? These have to be actions. Avon gadol hu, it is a tremendous sin. Thus said our sages in the tractate Sanhedrin, Hamal ben pnei chavero barabim, someone who causes his friend's face to go white in public, ein lo chelek la'olam haba, he too has no portion in our coming world. Lefichach, therefore, tzarach adam lizoher, a person needs to be extraordinarily cautious. Shelo levayish chavero barabim, not to embarrass his friend in public. Bein katon, bein gadol, whether the person that you're talking about is a child or an adult, an important person or an unimportant person. V'lo yikra lo b'shem shehu bo shemenu, not to call somebody by any name that ashames them. Don't give someone a nickname they don't like, or call them by a nickname they don't like. Oh, someone's coming here. I think I have to. Hold on a second. You want to come say hello? It's not live. It's not live. I'll put this in.
Yeah.
This is my friend Yusuf. We are. I'm trying to reach like the 10 people who are going to see it. Talk about values and how to treat other people, like you do. You light people on fire.
Yeah, sure.
You know.
Yeah.
So that's. I figured the pyramid is a backdrop. My point though, the reason I have the pyramids in the background, these pharaohs, they had people working their whole lives for their cemeteries.
Yeah.
Right?
I understand.
Anyway. Alright. Making a video here. Khamsa Kika. I make video. Pyramids. Khamsa Kika. Alright, second guy who came, very nice guy, Mohammed, but he might not he doesn't understand English, so it might have been confused what I'm doing here. Also, the other guy definitely would have been confused by the Hebrew. That would have caught him off guard a little bit. What can you do? Alright. V'lo yisaper lefanav davar shu bo shemenu, and don't speak before someone something that embarrasses them. B'med dvarim amurim. I told him a few minutes, I gotta finish right now very quick. B'med dvarim amurim, when is this referring to? B'dvarim shebein adam l'chavero, with matters that are between a person and his friend. Aval b'divrei shomayim, but with matters pertaining to heaven's concerns. Im lo chazaru b'seiser, if a person hasn't returned through your private, hidden communications. Machlimin also, you do embarrass him. Berabim in public, umefarsim cheto, and you publicize his sin. Umecharfim also, and you speak the harshest of language against him. Befanav, before his face. Umevazin, and you embarrass. Umekalilin also, and you curse him. Ad sheyachzor lemutav, until you have forced him to return to the good path. Kemo sha'asu kol hanavim b'Yisrael, like all the prophets of Yisrael have done. Misha chatal of chavero, someone whose friend has committed a sin against him. V'lo ratz lo chicho, and he doesn't want to reprove him. V'lo l'daber lo klum, not to say anything. Mipnei shehu achote heder b'yoser, because the person sinned against him is, he doesn't offend him. The person isn't a very important person, so he's not offended. Oy shahai sadato mishubeshes. Or if he's calm about it, he doesn't get offended easily. Umachalo b'libo, he forgives him in his heart. V'lo stamo, doesn't hate him. V'lo chicho, and he doesn't reprove him. Harei zo min chasidus. This is the highest path. This is the most righteous. Chasidus isn't righteous. It means a chassid, someone who goes above and beyond. Lo hikpid Torah. The Torah is only. People call me. Okay. Lo hikpid Torah. The Torah is only most concerned. Ela hala mastema. Only on the hatred. If you don't hate somebody, if it was only between you and them, not a thing against heaven's concerns. Someone wronged you and it doesn't bother you, whatever, you can let it go. Listen, I have lived among people whose immediate reaction to seeing either the color of my skin or the ethnicity or whatever, all kinds of other things, is to assume the worst. I lived in a completely African-American neighborhood in Brooklyn for 3 years before coming to Egypt. Nearly everybody is good and is won over once they realize that I don't fit the prejudice, and I try to convince them that most people don't fit the prejudice either. It's usually true, most people don't fit the prejudices. But I'm not easily offended. Thank God, it's not that much of a concern. I'm not that easily offended. I can be offended too. But if you're not offended, you don't have to reprove the other person. It's fine. Chayiv adam lehizoher. A person needs to be incredibly careful. Be yasomim. Salam, Jana. Oh, wow, that's amazing. Wow, that's wild. She. Assalamu alaikum, Jana. Kif aliki? She's a 7-year-old orphan girl that I wrote about on Substack. And the words I just read literally right now that I hadn't translated yet when she called out Musa was Chayiv Adam lehizoher biyasomim. A person needs to be most careful with orphans. She collects garbage and bangs from people, and she's 7 and doesn't go to school. I bought her shoes. I don't have money. You probably know that if you've watched any of my videos. But they're cheap here, and I'm happy to do it. Chayiv. Okay, I'm not going to go further because I can tell you something else, which is actually very, very problematic. There's someone else here who is an orphan as well that I can't really tell you. I can't tell you. But it's a complicated thing, and it's only because I'm trying to be very careful that I don't protect myself in ways I'm supposed to be protecting myself. Chayiv adam lehizoher. A person needs to be most careful, be a solim with orphans, va'almonos, and widows, mipnei shenavshon shfola l'mo, because their inner confidence is extremely low. Verucham, and their spirit nemucha can be downtrodden. Af al pi shehem balei mamon, even if they are wealthy. Afilu almonoso shel melech, even the widow of a king, v'yasomov, and his orphans. Muzharim anu aleihim, we are warned against them by the Torah, Shene'emar, as it says in Exodus, Kol almana v'yasom losa anu. Every widow and orphan you should not pain. V'heyach nohagini mohen. V'heyach nohagini mohen. And how do we act with them? Lo yidaber aleihem ela rakos. We only speak to them softly. V'lo yinhok behen ela min kavod, and we only treat them with honor. V'lo yachiv gufam ba'avoda, we don't cause their bodies pain with work. V'libam, or their hearts, dvarim kashim, difficult words. V'yachos amamonam yoser mimamon atzmo, and you worry about their finances more than you worry about your own finances. You're supposed to worry about the finances of everyone in Israel like your own. Them you have to worry more than your own. Kol hamaktinin, everyone who makes small, who puts down, o machisan, or makes them upset, o hichiv, or hurts them, their feelings, o hichiv lehen, o rada behen, or speaks harshly to them, o ibeid memonon, or causes them to lose money, hareza over below taaseh, that person is violating a commandment to something not to do. The kol shekain, all the more so, hamaka osam, one who hits them, o hamakalalon, or curses them. The lavzeh, and this commandment not to trespass, afal pisha ein lokin alav, even though you don't get whipped for it. Harei onshom ufarash b'Torah. The punishment for that person is clearly stated in the Torah. V'chara api, God says, I will show the anger of my face, v'haragti eschem b'cherev, and I will kill you with the sword. Bris Koras Lehen. There is a covenant made with them. Misha Omar V'Hoya. Okay, let's finish quickly. Bris Koras Lehen. There is a covenant made with them. Misha Omar, the one who spoke V'Hoya Ha'olam, and all of existence came into being. Shekolzman Shehem Tzoakim Mechamas Heim Na'anim. That every time they speak from being hurt, they are answered. Shenemar, as it says, Kiim Tzok Yitzak Elai, for if they cry out unto me, Shemea Eshmatzak, so I will hear his cries. Okay, we have to end there for a number of reasons, including this has been long, but if you think other people should see it, I don't know how. I'm sorry. I can't explain my particular form of blindness. People think that I know how to take advice about how to popularize what I'm doing or to get an audience. I don't know. And if you explained it to me, I couldn't do it either. It's a blindness I have, like color blindness, whatever. I just can't see my way with these practical things. Dotting the I's, crossing the T's. So if you're able to dot I's and cross T's, if you want to support me financially, you should know that's pretty helpful too. And I promise none of it goes extra to my own comforts. Not because I'm such a righteous guy, just because I'm fortunate I have so few needs. I managed to live a very, very beautiful, beautiful life without ever having had any money. It's difficult at times, very difficult at times, but overall it's been pretty extraordinary. I don't think I would live very much differently if I had $1 billion, being 100% except for security concerns, and being able to get my teeth fixed from some horrible doctor that messed me up for life. Otherwise I wouldn't be acting very differently, so you don't have to worry that money's going to waste. There's a lot of people and a lot of good things that I use money for when I have extra. Be well.